The Plymouth colony was established in 1620 by a group of English separatists who are now commonly known as the Pilgrims. These individuals fled England to escape religious persecution, seeking a place where they could practice their faith freely. After living in the Netherlands for several years, they organized a voyage to the New World. They set sail across the Atlantic Ocean aboard a ship called the Mayflower, carrying 102 passengers. Although their original destination was the northern part of the Virginia colony near the Hudson River, storms and navigational difficulties blew them off course, leading them to the shores of Cape Cod in present-day Massachusetts. Realizing they were outside the jurisdiction of their original patent, the male passengers drafted and signed the Mayflower Compact, a social contract that established a basic form of self-government and colonial rule. After exploring the coast, they decided to settle at a site they named Plymouth, which featured a cleared area that had previously been a Native American village. The first winter was devastating, with nearly half of the settlers dying from disease, hunger, and exposure. However, in the spring of 1621, they were aided by Somerset and Squanto, local indigenous people who taught the settlers how to plant corn, find fish, and survive in the new environment. The Pilgrims also established a peace treaty with Massasoit, the leader of the Wampanoag people. Following a successful harvest in late 1621, the settlers and the Wampanoag shared a feast that is today remembered as the first Thanksgiving. Plymouth Colony remained an independent settlement for several decades until it was eventually absorbed into the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1691. The Plymouth colony originated from a group of religious dissenters known as separatists who believed the Church of England was beyond reform and sought to establish a community based on their own strict interpretation of Christian principles. Before coming to America, they spent over a decade in Leiden, Holland, seeking religious freedom, but they eventually grew concerned about the secular Dutch influence on their children and their own economic hardships. To fund their voyage, they entered into a contract with a group of English investors called the Merchant Adventurers, who provided the necessary capital in exchange for a share of the colony's future profits in furs, fish, and timber. The voyage was originally intended to include two ships, the Mayflower and the Speedwell, but the Speedwell proved unseaworthy and had to be abandoned, forcing 102 passengers to crowd onto the Mayflower for a grueling 66-day journey across the Atlantic. When they reached Cape Cod in November 1620, they realized they were far north of their intended destination in the Virginia Territory. This lack of legal authority led to internal friction between the religious saints and the secular strangers, prompting the creation of the Mayflower Compact. This document was a landmark social contract where the signers agreed to submit to just and equal laws for the general good of the colony, representing one of the earliest forms of self-government in the New World. The site they chose for their settlement, Plymouth, had previously been a village of the Patuxet people, but the population had been wiped out by a devastating plague introduced by European explorers years earlier, leaving cleared land ready for planting. The first winter was catastrophic, as the settlers lived mostly on the ship while building small huts. Nearly half the population died from exposure, scurvy, and respiratory diseases. The colony's survival was largely due to the unexpected arrival of Somerset and later Squanto, the last surviving Patuxet, who spoke English because he had been previously kidnapped and taken to Europe. Squanto served as a vital intermediary, teaching the Pilgrims how to plant native crops like maize using fish as fertilizer, and helping them negotiate a peace treaty with Massasoit, the leader of the Wampanoag people. This alliance was mutually beneficial, as the Wampanoag were weakened by disease and sought protection against their rivals, the Narragansett. Over the next several years, the colony transitioned from a communal labor system to private land ownership to encourage harder work and self-sufficiency. Although the Plymouth colony never became a major economic power and was eventually absorbed by the much larger and wealthier Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1691, its history remains central to American identity due to its early democratic experiments and the enduring cultural narrative of the first Thanksgiving.